I've always been involved in sort of like being a steward on the job and one thing and another. But I was actually living in North Wales in 1972. I was married to a Welsh girl, obviously, and I had two small boys. And I was working on the Wrexham bypass, and I couldn't get a job as a tradesman, obviously, because it was groundwork and all that. So I was actually working with the safety gang, and I used to sort of go around and try and make the site as safe as possible, because in them days, in the building industry, someone died every working day. Yeah. The fatality figures were equal to that of the mining industry and the farming industry put together. So I would go around in the Land Rover, sort of making sure that the ditches were propped up and stuff like that. But anyway, working on the Wrexham bypass, and the national strike had been called, the one and only official building strike that there's ever been. And the site was picketed by a gang of fellas, and we all stopped work, and he called a meeting, and we went over, and the site was, we were addressed by a fellow called Barry Scraggs, and I think Barry Scraggs' name becomes quite important later on. And he said, listen, we're all out on strike, and this is the score, blah, 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 and we think you should join us, so we'd have a vote. And so we had a vote on the site, and everyone voted, obviously, to come out and join them in the pursuance of the health and safety and an increase in the wages. And then I was elected as the steward, the steward. So we used to have a meeting once a week in the Bull and Stirrup in Chester, and everyone from the local areas used to come round, from people from Chester, people from Liverpool, people from Oswestry, etc., etc., etc. And because people knew of my background, my political background, a remark was made, really, should he really be here? Should he really be here at these meetings? Should he be taking part in what's going on? And 9 times out of 10, if there was a vote taken, I would probably be on my own voting against it if I didn't agree with what was on. And one of the things that I didn't agree with, we were on strike, it was a national strike, but some firms had agreed to pay the rate that we were asking for. And so the lads in this strike committee voted that they could go back to work if each of the workers had gone back to work through a £1 a week levy into the fund, and we got that £1 a week levy which we used for petrol and going around and printing and stuff like that, and I disagreed with it. I disagreed with it then, and I disagree with it now. I believe in the old adage, one out, we're all out, and we all go back together. But anyway, as I say, time after time, I was outvoted. But then, as I say, I'm from Liverpool. I've got a bit of a big mouth, and I do decide what we say. But just to try and impress upon you what the conditions was like then in 1972, there was no toilets. There was no toilets on the site. If you went to work and you wanted to go to the toilet, you either went to a pub, but I mean, we're talking about the countryside here, we're talking about the outskirts of Wrexham. You either tried to find a pub, or went behind a bush, or you went home and lost your day's pay. If you got injured, you either suffered the injury, or went home, or went to the hospital, and then you lost your pay. It really was as bad as that, and I can't impress upon you enough. Someone died every day, every working day. 250 odd people a year died in the building industry. But more importantly, if you got soaked at 8 o'clock in the morning, don't forget this is all outside work, digging ditches, laying drains, stuff like that. If you got soaked at 8 o'clock in the morning, there was nowhere for you to dry your gear. And that's the way it was, and that's the way it's always been, more or less, in the building industry. But management always had their site huts with hot and cold running water, with their proper toilet facilities, with a kitchen so they could make a cup of tea and stuff like that. And I remember going round one day, because I used to collect the subs, and I remember going round one day in the Land Rover, and there was 2 Irish lads working down a ditch, and one of them had hit the other fella in the head accidentally with the spade, and his head was pretty bad, breathing pretty bad. And I said, hey, quick, get out, get in the Land Rover, and I'll take you to the hospital. And he went, no. He was terrified. He was absolutely terrified. And he was terrified of the works foreman, who was a man called Mick Mee, who was 6'7", and he was from this area. He was from round here. If anyone knows the name, he may have cropped up. And I'm not saying Mick was the brightest pebble on the beach, although he was the works manager, because one day he asked me to make a staff for him. He was measuring something, and I said, what size do you want it, Mick? He said, 1 metre 2 foot. So, I think, like, you know, Spaghetti Junction, he was in charge. He must have started off as a no, but honestly, it really was as bad as that. But anyway, as I say, we went to all these meetings. My politics was sort of thrown in my face and stuff like that. But then the lads begin to trust you and they get to know you. And on the day in question, when we went picketing round Shrewsbury and Shropshire and Brookside and stuff like that, you know, we had a wonderful day. It was a tremendous day. It was absolutely amazing. We went to all them sites. There was about 6 or 7 coaches of us. Now, I'd hired a coach from Wrexham to take my particular party, but the man who had hired the coach off was a man called Tecwyn Price. And Tecwyn used to use one of his coaches to do the school run. And so I'd only hired it for half a day, because that's where we'd agreed in the meeting in the Bull, instead of we were only going to go out as far as Oswald Street. But when we got to Oswald Street, the lads had a meeting on NASUWT, we would carry on and help them to go and picket the Brookside site. It was a very big site. So I had to phone Tecwyn Price back in Wrexham and say, Tecwyn, look, can I keep the coach? Can I keep the coach for the rest of the day? And he went, yeah, that's fine. No, sort the money out, the extra money when you come back. And he actually got called as a prosecution witness, and he said no. He phoned me in the middle of the day. You know, could he have the coach for the rest of the day? He said, I used another coach to pick the kids up from school. So as I say, the strike was amazing. We were escorted all the time by the police and by senior police officers. The most senior one was a fellow called Detective Chief Inspector Meredith, and he congratulated me and Desi Warren on the end of the day. So they'd been with us for hours and hours around all these sites. No one had been hurt, no one had been hospitalised, no one had been cautioned, no one had been arrested, and that was it. We thought that was it. We were all over. Until about 5 months later, I was working, still as a labourer, still working with the safety gang. I was approached on the site by 2 detectives. And they said, we know your background, we know your family background and stuff like that. So what's happening is, he said, there's going to be a court case about what went on during the strike. And I went, oh yeah. So he said, what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to be a prosecution witness. And I said, hang on, I was the leader. I take full responsibility for what went on this site. I was the leader. I was elected the leader. And actually went, well, you either become a prosecution witness or we'll do you. And I said, well, you'll have to do me. You know, that's the way it is. So, when I'd gone back to work after the strike, I was approached by the same Mick May, who said to me, now listen, we've noticed you, we know you've got a little bit about you, so we want you to go to Portugal and become works manager on the road that we're building. Building the road in Portugal, and he wanted me to be the works manager. I said, I can't read the spirit level, never mind at the other light. I said, I don't want to go to Portugal. You know, I live here, and I'm living in a little council house with my wife and my 2 boys. So, but anyway, that was it. Until a few weeks later, the 2 lads were getting bathed in front of the fire. And knocked on the door, 2 detectives come in, and we were, put your coat on and off your pot. So I went to Wrexham Police Station, and a couple of the other lads were there, a couple of the other lads. And he never told us what was going on, but the next thing is, we were thrown in a police van and driven to Shrewsbury. And on reflection, I've never been in trouble with the police, so I didn't know what the score was. I mean, I'd always been brought up to respect the police, really. On the way to the court, we were accompanied by police on motorbikes, and police in cars, and police with dogs in vans. This is 6 blokes. Gets to Shrewsbury, goes into the neck in Shrewsbury, gets photographed, gets fingerprinted, and done all the business, and got charged. So on the day, as I say, none of us were approached, none of us were picked up, no one was cautioned, no nothing. But I had then how many did I have? 21? Yes. I had 21 charges against me then. 21 different offences. Desi Warren had more than me. Anyway, that was it. So I'll just jump to now. So we're going to court now, and we've got our barristers sorted out. And I have to go to London to meet my barrister, a man called Keith McHale. And this is the truth. Never been in the barristers' chambers before, obviously. And I went in, and he just said, "How are you going to plead?" And I said, "Not guilty." He said, "Well, you probably get 2 years." That was it. That was it. No writing down. What did you do? Where did you go? That was the end of the conversation. That was the end of my visit to London. So it ended up. We went to court, and the trial was a bit of a landmark, really, because it lasted for 55 days. It cost £1 million in 1972. I was in the witness box for 3 days, and policeman after policeman came into the witness box and said, "We were terrified. The pickets were everywhere. We were terrified. We couldn't make any arrests." And it was so ridiculous, it actually bordered on the farcical. And as I say, the jury went out, and they couldn't reach a verdict. But what was interesting, when the jury was getting selected, Quinton Holly was the Home Secretary at the time, changed the rules. You could no longer ask a man going on the jury what his occupation was. Because we actually, when they were selecting the jury, there was many a fellow said, "I don't want to be on the jury. I was on one of the sites," and they got thrown out. But he altered the rules, and anyway, they picked the jury, 12 men or whatever, men and women. As they went, they heard all this evidence, but as people were going into the court, they were given a photograph of me, with the beard and everything. They were given a photograph of Desi Warren, and told what chairs we were sitting in the dock. Every single person who came in to give evidence. And so, even then, things weren't sinking in. We thought, we're not in trouble here. We're going to get away with this. It's crazy. But until we met the judge, and he was absolutely horrendous. He was absolutely horrendous. And one or two little things happened during the course of the trial which made me think we're on the loser here. One of them was Henry Irvine, who was an MP, a Labour member MP for Liverpool. He was sacked by John Clewick because he didn't know what day it was. He used to get driven to court in his Rolls Royce with a cigar about that long, a dodgy old fellow who didn't have a clue. He didn't have a clue, so he got the sack, and they got another fellow in. There was a fellow called Philip Phillips, a QC who was Welsh. During the trial, he was locked up for drunken disorderly. And the morning after they were releasing him from the cells, he pinched his urine sample and run off into the town where he was captured and locked up again. So this is the sort of thing that was going on. And the trial was getting really, really to the end, to the crescendo. And during the sum up, my fellow said to me, Keith McHale said to me, "I've got to leave you. I've got to go and represent the Angry Brigade." I said, "Well, I'm fucking angry, stay here." And off he went. This is the summing up. But in a way it was a good thing because his junior took over, a fellow called David Daltaris, and he was great. He had to keep stopping it because he was asking questions he shouldn't have asked. But one thing that comes out of it, and it makes me laugh now, Desi Warren, who was far more political than me, Desi was saying to the judge about his telephone being tapped. And the judge said, "It's not. We don't tap telephones in this country. It's illegal. We don't tap telephones." Desi said, mine's tapped. He said, "It's not." He said, "It is." He said, "How do you know?" He said, "I haven't paid the fucking bill for 3 years." And they haven't cut his phone off. Anyway, the jury couldn't reach a verdict, so the judge, his name was Mays, M-A-I-S. He said, "Go away." He said, "Sleep on it." He said, and try and bring a verdict in tomorrow morning. Well, right, I told you I'd jump about. Right at the beginning of the trial, on the morning the trial started, and I generally have a photograph with me, there was 4,000 police on duty. 4,000 police on duty outside the courtroom, with dogs, with cameras, with motorbikes, in helicopters, fellas with cameras on the top of the statue outside the courtroom. And this is what it was. It was absolutely horrendous when we realised, I thought, bloody hell, what's going on here? But anyway, what he said is, on the morning of the trial started, he took the six lads who were on trial, into what they call a holding cell. And two of the barristers come in and they went, listen, we've been offered a deal, not done a deal, we've been offered a deal. Plead guilty now, you're going to get fined 50 quid, the union are going to pay the £50, you'll all be home for dinner time. So the first four lads, John Carpenter, Mackie, John Clewitt, Ken O'Shea, said, we'll take the deal. And they come to me. And I said, no, I'm not pleading guilty. I'm not pleading guilty. I've got no criminal record. Done nothing wrong. I'm not pleading guilty. And Desi Warren said, and I'm not pleading guilty. So give the other four there. Judy said, well, hang on, you two are pleading not guilty. We'll all plead not guilty. And so they ended up back at the top of us. And that's very important, that, because the union, you're going to get fined 50 quid and the union are going to pay the £50. And this is important. I want you to remember that. Hey, the jury goes out. They're out overnight. We're locked up in Shrewsbury jail. Obviously, we'd been well fingerprinted and photographed and all the rest of it. And on the following morning, the jury come in, and he was sat there and they were very pensive. And the judge said, have you reached the verdict? And he went, we've reached a majority verdict. He said, and what is it? He said, a majority of 10 to 2, we find them guilty. And with that, the judge started handing the sentences out. But when he got to me, they'd reduced our charges to 3 specimen charges on each of them. And I got 2 years jail on each of the 3 charges. But with that, 2 of the jurymen jumped up and started boxing with the other fellas in the jury box. Started saying, you bastard, and you, and it was all kerfuffle. And then the 2 of them got out and run out of the courtroom and back into the jury room. Well, they hadn't sentenced Desi. So they had to be, apparently they've got to be there, they've got to be there while the judge sentences them. So they had to go in and get these 2 jurymen, bring them back out, sit them in the jury box, while Desi got 3 years on each, because the judge absolutely hated him, so he got 3 years on each. So after we were found guilty, we went down the stairs, and we later on learned that the foreman of the jury was outside and he was crying. And he was speaking to our wives. And we said, what happened? What was the score? He said, well, it was 8-4. 8-4 for a long time. He said, then the court usher come in and said, what's all the problem? If they get found guilty, they're only going to get fined 50 quid. And the union are going to pay the fines. So it was exactly the same as we'd been told. And one of the persons who overheard that conversation is a fellow called Jim Nichol, who is now a very celebrated civil liberties lawyer. So we know that them both statements are true. But as I say, this lady knows more about what went on in the shenanigans and everything like that. And she'll do that. But I just want to tell you quickly what happened when we went to jail. Mackie got 12 months. I got 2 years on each. Desi got 3 years on each. And we went to jail. They put the 3 of us in this cell in Shrewsbury before we got moved. And Mackie collapsed. Never been in trouble with his life. Never been in trouble with the police in any way. Nice, quiet, wasn't he? And his wife was pregnant at the time with their second baby. They had a tiny baby girl, and she was pregnant with the second one, and he just collapsed and claustrophobia. So we said, Mackie, look, we're going to have to leave you. We want you to get away, go to an open prison or whatever, because me and Desi are not going to do. We're not going to soldier. We're not going to wear clothes. We're going to be as awkward as we can. And I'm glad to say, he did get off, didn't he? But his wife being pregnant and all like that had no bearing on the judge at all. And that man never told his children that he'd been to jail until the last 12 months. He kept it from his 2 girls. He had to change his job, his profession. He's highly qualified now, and a wonderful job, and he goes all over the world. But anyway, I'm going to get back onto what me and Desi done. Me and Desi went in, and first of all, we wouldn't. They decided to put us in the workshop, and we wouldn't work. Cause murder. We wouldn't. And I can honestly tell you, for the whole of the time that I was in prison, I never once pressed the bell and asked them for anything. Never once, honestly. I never once shut my own cell door. So I think I was moved to about 14 prisons, 14 different times. Come in at midnight and say, like, put your stuff in your pillowcase, you're going. Where am I going to? Mind your own business. So throw you in the back of the van and off you go. Jesse got moved 17 times. So, I mean, it was getting pretty hoary now, so me and Desi, what we done, we made a little pact that we wouldn't soldier, we would do things together, we'd have a good go. And but what he'd started doing to Desi, and I didn't know this at that particular time, he'd started taking the sleeping draft for the night, and it was having a really, really serious effect on his health. I wouldn't take it. I took it once, and then I had like a 100-yard stay, it's like, you're in a daze, man, you're in a daze. So we were shifted about and different things like that. And little instances crop up on your mind, like he moved us to London to go to one of these appeal things, and while we're in the cell, because I only used to see him every now and again, there's a young lad in the cell, and he was in for drugs, and I detest drugs, I really, really detest drugs, and I said to this, he's only a young lad, photographs of his wife all over the wall, I said, you're a mug lad, what are you doing with so lovely young lad like your lovely young wife? And while we're talking, he's just got a razor blade and opened his wrist. Blood everywhere. I jumped on him and grabbed his arm. Desi jumped off the bed, pressed the bell, got the screws. The screws come, took the kid away. He come back about an hour later with big bandages on his arm. And outside on the board, he scratched his wrist. No concern, no compassion. And he was doing 4 years, by the way, this kid. But there was a lot of that went on. But as I say, I used to crap on the floor, I wouldn't use the toilet, wouldn't ask them for nothing. And then, me and Desi had made this pact, and we decided to go on hunger strike. And so, they moved us to the prison hospital. They moved me on the ground floor and Desi on the first floor. And after 30 days, this school teacher used to come in and see me practically every day. And he used to say, listen, don't do that, you're going to damage your inside. I said, listen, I've got to do what I've got to do, And he went, don't do that. And then there was a big screw there. He was a mount of a man, and he went, oh, you're the tough guy, They all thought I was Desi Warren. I don't know why. You're the tough guy, I said, no, I've never won a fight in my life. He said, well, I'm the man who's going to be force-feeding you. I said, oh, well, that's fair enough, isn't it? It's going to be very uncomfortable. I said, look, that's what you'll have to do. And he suddenly changed. And every night, he used to have a grill on the hospital door, like, the grill would slide and he'd throw the newspaper through. And I'd get the newspaper and read every word, And I found out later on it was this fella who was going to force feed me. Like, I thought he must have just... Anyway, whatever happened. So, for 30 days, we get a telegram from Parliament. Come off the hunger strike. Things are moving. This is off the Labour Party. This things are moving. We'll have it out soon, so blah, blah, blah. So they come in and he said to me, Warren's been eating for the last 3 or 4 days. I said, no, he hasn't. He went up to him and said, Tomo's been eating for the last 2 days. He said, no, he hasn't. So we said, look, I tell you what, we've had this telegram. Can we have a meet, me and him can meet in the prison yard and decide what we're going to do? So we said, yeah, and I'll never forget Desi. Because he was tough, like. But my beard was down here, and my hair was down here, with no clothes on. So I had to just rip a hole in the middle of a blanket and put it on like a poncho, and went out into the prison yard. And Desi looked at me and he went, fucking hell, it's Ben Gunn after treasure. And I said, what are we doing? And this is the truth, honestly. I mean, I can't go 31 minutes now without something to eat. But it's 31 days, coming on 31 days, and I could have gone on forever. I made me mind, I could have gone on forever. He went, listen, we'll give it another 24 hours or 48 hours and we'll come off and then we'll see what happens. And anyway, to cut the story short, we come off and nothing happened. Obviously, the Labour Party let us down, and we actually spent more time in jail under the Labour Party than we did under the Conservatives, But Desi's health was deteriorating rapidly. He was taking these drugs, and I didn't know. And then I'm in one of the prisons I was moved to. I was then in what they call a segregation unit in Leicester Prison. And the governor was a man called Norman Lowe. And he come in and he said to me, and he was a lovely man. His hands were like that with arthritis. And he'd been a bricklayer. And he got out the bricklaying game because obviously he couldn't do it. And he'd worked himself up to be a prison governor. And he was the only governor in any prison I went to who walked around on his own. He never had the chief officer with him. They always have a chief officer with them, all in uniform. This fella just walked around on his own. And I was always polite and I was always courteous to him. He come in and said, he said, you shouldn't be in here. And I said, I know that. And he went, have you read this? I said, what is it? And he gave me the Rapid South of Philanthropist. And it changed my life. It changed my life. It changed my politics, the direction in which I went. It was wonderful, and people have read about it since. I've sent them everywhere. I've sent copies to America, to Canada, I've even sent copies to China. People, anyway, so it was absolutely, it was a wonderful thing. And then he come down one day and he went, listen, he said, I want you to come to my, because you can't have visits, obviously, no one visits you, your family or nothing, because you're not wearing clothes. So he said, I want you to come and, I want you to come to my office tomorrow. He said, you're going to have a visit. I said, I can't have a visit. He said, no, he said, you've got there's an MP and 2 trade union officials coming in to see you. I said, oh, okay then. So, shorts and goes up to his office the next day. And a fellow called Billy Jones, Alan Abrams, and an MP from around here called Tom Litterick. I don't know if any older people will remember him. Tom Litterick, I think he's dead now, obviously. And he said, now listen, this is in the governor's office. Prisoners don't get visits in the governor's office. He said, right, you're going home. I said, no, I'm not. He said, no, you are, you're going home. We're letting you go. And I said, no, you're not. He said, but why? What's wrong? I said, because I've lost all my remission. I've probably got extra time to do. I've sorted it out with my wife. I'm going to do every day that you've sentenced me to. And he went, no, we're not asking you. We're telling you. Because if you don't go out, he said, Desi wasn't not very well. So I had to write a letter to him. I just wrote a letter. Yeah, dear Des, I'm sorry. I've decided I'm going home. I'm missing the kids and I'm missing my wife and all that. And he sent a letter back, which he may as well have stabbed me. He said, no, you cowardly bastard. He said, we made a pact. He said, and I couldn't tell him. I was getting forced out because when this meeting with the MP and I finished, the governor just picked the phone up. Phone down instantly, he went blah 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 blah. Yeah, you'll be going out the day after tomorrow, and that was it. And I was out. But when I went out, I couldn't go and visit Desi because there was things going on in his private life which I didn't want him to know about. We didn't realise how bad his condition was. But I went all around the country sort of getting support for him. And I remember going to the TUC conference in Blackpool and causing murder. There was headlines on the 6 o'clock news, and the chairperson was Marie Patterson, and I screamed, let me get on, let me speak for 5 minutes. And she got the bouncers and actually threw me out onto the steps in Blackpool. And anyway, cut the story short, a bit later, Desi was released, but they threw him out of the prison at midnight out the back door. When I got released at 8 o'clock in the morning, and all the press was there, Paul Fuchs, Jim Nichols, Lolly Flynn, people like that, all good lefties. But Desi got thrown out at midnight, but I couldn't go to see him because he'd say to me, why didn't you come and see me? And I couldn't tell him what was going on. But I'd got a little office then in Liverpool, and it was years and years, and I'll have to cut this short because I'm going up my time. And there was a note pushed under the door, and it just said, Desi would like to see you, he's not very well. And there was an address in Chester. And I just got in my car and drove to Chester and went up to this house, and the back door. I knocked on the back door, and a woman's voice shouted, come in. And I went in, and Desi, who honestly had shoulders on him like Garth. He had shoulders on him like Garth, but he was a steel fixer. And there's this wrinkled old man lying on the floor on a mattress with a rope from the mattress screwed into the joists in the ceiling. And he pulled himself up and put his arms around me and kissed me. And he said, do you know how long it is, Rick? And I said, nah, don't, Desi, you know. Tried to be old manly, you know. I said, no, I can't remember. And but that was it. He was on his way out. He was on his way out because of the drugs that they'd given him. And he actually died of drug-induced Parkinson's. And he was paid. He sued them and got some compensation, a few £1,000, but had to sign a gagging clause. And we're still trying to find his bloody prison records now, and we're not having much luck. But thanks to this lady here, Miss Hathaway, sitting on my left, she's done an incredible job. I still get quite bitter, still get quite angry, but then I've been so lucky, you know, changed my job, changed my career, played some wonderful parts. made a few quid. I lost my home when I came out of prison. I lost my home because the bailiff come in. It was a lovely little detached cottage, and I'd roofed it myself. All the walls were Scotch bottle and farmhouse, plastering, a lovely Ingle new fireplace. And when I come out of prison, that eventually went, you know. And I drive past it now, and it's a shame, you know. I drive past it. I could buy bloody 20 of them now, you know. But no, I've been very, very lucky, and I just feel sorry for some of the lads who haven't had the luck that I've had. I've met wonderful people. I've met Ken Loach, and I've made movies that have made a difference, like Rain and Stones, and worked with superstars. And my famous faux pas, as I said to this fellow once in the Groucho Club in London, are you in show business? And it was Robert De Niro. But no, I've been so lucky, and but this is why it's so important that we get this girl here has got like about 60 MPs who signed an early day motion. We'd like another 60. We've actually got a Tory, one of the 60 is a Tory. They've gone right across the board and they've signed it. But the important thing is that I don't know anything about technology. I can't use a typewriter or an iPad or whatever you call it. We need to get 100,000 names on this e-petition, you know. So I'm coming here tonight to ask for your help, if you could do that. But just before, and I am finishing now, honestly, I've gone far, far too long. This is a letter, this is the last one that we got off Jack Straw, and it came via Peter Kilfoyle, the MP. And what he stated, and I want you to have a look at this, it's urging anyone to have a look at it. And I underlined the little bit at the back, which is most important. When he was asked if he would release our papers, because like it's 40 years now, not 30, and he said he'll never be able to release the papers because it would they're vital to our national security, and I'm still classed as a threat to national security, not quite as bad as Abu Hamza. And he said the security and intelligence blanket clearly applies to these papers. So that's it. I hope you have a look. Can you just say thank you very much for coming tonight, and God bless you. Hope you can help.